Hi everyone. Thank you all so much for coming. Is that on okay? Can you hear me all right? Yeah. This is the last launch on our mini tour. I think you can call 3 stops. That class is really fun. So my name is Ilisha and welcome to my third book launch for my debut pamphlet, What She Said. And it was published in April with the Poetry Press, so just earlier this year. I knew I wanted to have a launch in Edinburgh and I was really, really happy to be able to have it at Lighthouse. And I had to think of a place. It was the first place that came to my mind. It's such a lovely space and the team have been so great in terms of the organising and making us feel really welcome. So I really appreciate that. Just in terms of general housekeeping for the event, I've written down way more things than I remember. This is all for the Newcastle one, so I'm like in my mind translating it into Lighthouse. You don't really need to know too many about fire exits, it was just there. But in terms of content warning, there are themes of sexual violence running throughout my reading. It's a relaxed performance, so if you feel like you need to leave for any point, please feel welcome to do what feels right to you. So the event will go as follows. So there'll be readings from Zainab, JJ, Mymona, and then I'll read, and then Mymona and I will have a bit of a chat. Having these launches is, I keep saying this, but it's like having a party and really worrying that no one will show up. So thank you all so much for showing up. It means so much to me. And thank you so much to all the poets who are here performing with me. Yeah, the book and the work means so much to me. And to be supported by people who I know and I don't know, yeah, it really means the world to me. Yeah, so thank you all for being here and let's get some poetry. Right. So first up, we've got Zainab. So Zainab and I've literally been telling the story before, but Zainab and I met through a kind of a writing scheme for young poets, and it ended up in like a retreat we got to go on, and where we just spent a kind of sleepless week chatting and doing absolutely no writing. And I always remember at one point we had like a writing exercise to do. We had like 5 minutes to write. I can't remember what the prompt was. It was a prompt about some sort of artifact or something. And in like 5 minutes, Zainab had written just this completely fully formed, amazing piece of writing, which was about an artifact museum. So the thread was there, but I just remember being blown away by how talented they are as a person and how warm they are also as a friend. So Zainab Imran is a poet and facilitator of British Pakistani heritage from Manchester. In 2022, they were awarded the Royal Society of Literature and Sky Arts Award for Poetry as an emerging writer of colour, and were part of the Words of a Stage 2.0 cohort with Apple and Snakes, which was our one we did together. They were shortlisted for the Queen Mary Wasafiri New Writing Prize 2024 and was also part of the Poetry Translation Centre's Undertow programme. Zainab is now working towards their PhD in creative writing at the University of St Andrews, researching poetics, race, identity and decolonialism in museum spaces.
What a generous introduction, so sweet. Thank you, Ilisha, for having me for one thing. I'm literally a month new to Edinburgh as well, so this is the greatest way to, I suppose, celebrate nearly about a month moving. And it's always a privilege to be able to read and hear Ilisha speak, and poets in general to speak and discover new work as well. And so I'm so excited to read the beautiful work that you've got in this little pamphlet. So yeah, a lot of the work I do right now is about colonial haunting in museums. I work in a museum as well, so that's always a nice intersection to be, oh yeah, there's artifacts from like my country and there's also a lot of racism in the office as well. How does one tackle that? So I thought, obviously write poems about it. And so you will be subject to some of those, but also talking about natural spaces and landscapes, and like coming into those as people of colour and the right to roam, especially as well. So the first poem I want to share with you is called Split. In the seminar, we discuss Orientalism. I no longer want to put my tongue in the table. I have no wish to be split in two. No longer want to lick the sunburnt flesh of this text. Cleopatra, fluid, Antony, imperial pillar. I feel my splitting regardless, water parting when it meets stone. At the British Museum, I step back from a glass case and bump into a white man. Anger sweeps across his cheeks like purple wildfire. And what? 7. Something splits open on my cheeks like a cardamom pod. and I can't even remember what I had been stepping away from. Maybe an anklet found in a harem, maybe a horse's stomach carved into a flask. I felt something fill my stomach like a flask, or maybe a farmer's cotton shirt, now crucified in London, now so far from Punjab, so pure and white-washed of his accusations, no scent of August-splitting days, when a nation was being washed of birth on its train tracks. And what filled my stomach then? I know it would not wet your thirst now. I could answer you like a canyon or Titania's quiet Indian boy. No more serpent in her room. Thank you. Here, maybe another museum poem, and then head into the natural landscape poems. So you all know probably about the Elgin marbles down at the British Museum, and there's still a lot of contested debate on where it should go, and people that have their own opinions, but calling them the Parthenon marbles maybe expresses my opinion on that. So this is a poem titled Parthenon Marbles. And the expert's unquestioned scrubbing of the Parthenon sculptures leads me here. Here, under a poster of the Parthenon temple, is where someone lays with me in the grass. The grass is hot, lays down under my calves. I learn Parthenon relates to virgin maiden, goddess. You learn to clean into white goddessness. I suppose no yellow torso. In those draped lines, supposed head, torso, suspended uprooting of the body, so quiet, headless, therefore quiet, suspended in century. I discuss terracotta with the children. The children discuss Viking longships with me. I'm thinking of Congolese amputations. Does his amputated hand have you think, therefore, of the impression he wished to give you? How often the impression by white eyes give us new names, Elgin, new reckonings. Thank you. I often think that our 20s are just made for fighting letting agents and commuting. I talk so much about commuting to friends and how annoying it is, and I try not to talk about it to my parents, who will just say get a car. And I don't have a license, and I can't imagine trying to get a license in Edinburgh. So this poem is titled Commute, and it was when I was starting to commute from Dundee to Edinburgh for work, and also Dundee to St Andrews for uni. Commute. The sky was spread open like a wound, an animal caught in its final frantic moment, a formation of birds uncurled as a ribbon does. I'd caught sight of my face in the train window, staring hard and long enough to see my pores in the glass. Nostrils grew on my face, expanded like warrant entrances. 2 eyes became 4, became tree hollows where robins appeared like blood vessels. I moved back to avoid being invasive, stopped watching for small things and rabbits. The train's dedicated path is not the same as my treading. The brown legs straying as they do onto national green. I see placards on my phone say, no black in the Union Jack. I see Easter Island heads as garden decor emerging from a bungalow's front garden. In tall fields, when weathered paths cross, I think of being at the intersection and refused a greeting. This is my only way home. Landowners tell me to turn back. Behind them, the deer made of iron is outlined by the lowered sun, contortioned into grazing. I concentrate on making myself disappear, be nowhere, silent as a headphone. Thank you. Got 2 more about it. I really, when I was commuting to St Andrews, I really was admiring the pheasants on the way in like, the countryside, because you don't get pheasants in Manchester, believe it or not. And they were just really interesting to me. And I think I've been reading a lot of Zaporizhzhia as well. It was around the time England's Green had come out, so I was really thinking of that, the wee poem as well. green and pleasant land in Jerusalem and stuff. So this is a poem titled Pleasant Land. The pheasant could be a symbol of nostalgia. When I began to commute like this, I thought of nothing but England's green belt, the carpet at my cousin's nursery, a mobile of laminated words, green poster paper framing, democracy, individual liberty, the turf at Fiverside, this pleasant land. Once we strayed onto a farmer's land and he answered with a rifle pointed to the sky. For so long after, my voice watched a fighter jet from the hedgerows, waiting as prey does. For so long, the wild running pheasants of Fife were a puzzle to me. Keane's raps, she don't like you, she says you was a peasant, she said I'm classy like a ring-necked pheasant. A white girl from Tottenham, with 2 failed dates between us on the bus, talks about Jerusalem. The foam in the Tay gathers like the outline of a net. I think of its mesh wringing a pheasant's neck. Thank you. I really like hedgerows, you could tell. It'd probably be really cozy to be able to snuggle into one. The very last poem is titled The White Hart, which is a wee pub that was in the news, I think a year ago, about certain toys that they were keeping within there. This argument for nostalgia, I suppose, or keeping something of the past, which really irked me. So yeah, this is a final poem. Is JJ next? Yeah, hand over to JJ. The White Hart. In one dream, I commuted. Sunlight followed the morning of my body in slanted delivery. A seagull colony on Inchgavery's Welcome Green, silent and sleepy, now away from us. I watched the yellow canoe teeter below the water surface and over time become totally abandoned by us all, disappearing finally, the anxiety it gave, the knots it made. In another, I dreamt of hiking to a pub where the sign above the door was licked with years of paint, brown on cream, hiding bulbous old characters. Streaky, their red smiles grew, waning beneath. Customers made of cotton watched my skin, damp and loud in the long tunnel of time, looking back over their shoulders. The symbols fade in the sun. In leaving, each way I turned, white animals emerged from the woods, greeting me in my descent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was gorgeous. I think the line, yeah, is it silent as a hedgerow? Yeah, good things. So next up we've got JJ. JJ and I met when they were a poet in resident 2 years ago at the Stanza Poetry Festival. And I'd gone there to volunteer and I didn't really know anyone. So I was kind of there. I was actually at the Lighthouse bookshop stall. Like I was literally had nothing. I really wasn't providing that much support. They didn't really need me to do anything. So I just sat there looking at the books, which was great. And I saw JJ. I thought they looked like just such like a warm, lovely person. So we chatted, and then yeah, became friends quite quickly from that. And their commitment to the way that love and activism kind of runs through everything that they do, from kind of how they create and move through the world, is something that I find really inspiring about them. And I've seen JJ perform a couple of times, and each time it's really wonderful. JJ Fadaka is a writer, facilitator, and radical based in Edinburgh. Their writing explores the possibility of abolition, feminism, and love to create change. Their work speaks to the political urgencies we face while centering community making in our resistance. JJ.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm really, really proud to be here and like so incredibly proud of you and very, very excited to buy this poetry collection for the second time. Just so that I can have it signed. Oh, sorry. Yeah, thank you all for coming, and I'm so excited to hear the beautiful poetry. I also work here, so I was just saying it's so nice to be sitting on this side. So I'm like lapping up, sitting down in this space. But I have a few poems to read. And yeah, I'm just going to jump into the first one. It's called Coil. And it's like about memory and me trying to do this research into like invisibilized care work by Black carers, and searching for voices in the archive, but not really finding them. So where do you go to learn about your history then? I think about embodied memory. I think about, yeah, looking to political structures around you, trying to like fill in the gaps of storytelling and dreaming and working into the future. If I do it this way, maybe my ancestors did it that way, kind of thing. So this first one is called Coil. The cliffs, their babies, birds survey the coastal sky, their king. Grounding the sunset is on a calming ting. Ashe, ashe, ashe. I see you and want to be seen. Down at the sink, washing grease from my scalp, as I cannot swim, if I see the deep, I will breathe it in. The kitchen bends my back, neck, and breath away from recognition. Ashe, ashe, ashe. I can feel the heat between legs, twitching for the wild. The jungle, the river, and their red. Breasted robin whistle that tune. Do you remember the emancipatory lyrics? They are an ancestor, a daughter, returning but still just a set of two hands. Ashe, ashe, ashe. Leave the chorus and the children be. Let them be learning. Let them be playing. Father, let them be. Twirl and crown yourself a pretty girl. The coil and all it holds shines into itself. From what it lets you see, you catch death and resurrection. Eureka, transformation. We return to knowing like a snake, bouncing back like a coil. Thank you. So it's summertime and I love writing about love, like was already said. And my next poem is just about things that you do in the summertime, like cooking with friends and finding platonic love, new family love. Yeah, finding love in like unexpected places. And I don't know what it is about the summer that brings it out, but this next poem is called Loving On. What am I loving on? What is receiving my love? The boundaries I rest my body on when pushed from comfort to unease. I'm loving rest and restoration, loving its beauty. I find in your smile, on your lips, magic when you speak, lovers' chemistry. Relaying your day, you take extra care to describe what you chose to eat. I'm thinking ahead to getting closer and learning all your recipes. Retracing your steps, better choreographed in your kitchen, realizing you saute better than me. Loving secret ingredients, loving that you shared them with me. Loving the smoke and the smells, billowing winds of joy, circling all around my body. Warm skin greeting me, quiet hours, candles, low lights, jazz tunes. My new favorite song plays, I embody peace. Loving this serenity and the daydreams it's afforded me. I'm loving on these passing thoughts, intrusive compliments from loving friends imprinted on me. Loving learning and building this web, caring for the hands, naming the intention behind me. Loving being loved, loving finally. Breathe in, using every space in this body for loving, 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 finally. Thank you. So the next poem I have is called Hope, and I wrote this really early on when I started to write poetry, just after the pandemic. I was like watching the news as we all were at home with nothing else to do, and just seeing how language was twisted to make us like see certain news stories in different ways. And it made me think about the power of words and learning to wield them and how important it was for there to be more than one dominant narrative on television. So I was really looking forward to like getting out of lockdown and being able to speak to other people. So yeah, this is about me writing poetry and it's called Hope. If is a powerful word. We use it to dream everyday conversation. Slip it between the weather and weekend plans to share our most vulnerable wants. Where else could I say, if there were more bicycle lanes, I might finally learn to ride properly. Dreams are made up of segments of the day. We pick up ideas when they stare us in the face. They could mumble something helpful or not, and we find the words dancing in our subconscious at night. If I didn't work so much, I'd have more time for my loved ones. I love hearing someone say the word if. Engage me in a conversation for our imagination, and you've engaged me for days. If we could go bolder. Sometimes words just slip out after all. If whiteness didn't rely on criminalizing Black boys, there would be no need for the police. If we had equal access to free, healthy food, they would be okay. If we had rent control, so many more people would be off the streets. If we rise to fight against genocide, Palestine will be free. If things were different. Where else but with if could I entertain a potentially different possibility, shrouded in innocent dreaming to stave off conversation enders, aka reality? If doesn't get a chance, if you hold in your voice and leave a gap for nothing, no possibility, no exploration, a remaining of the same, the world as is. But if. So I have just one more poem. This one is called War Machine, and it was written, I didn't bring my poetry book, so I had to like quickly print out some poems to read, and I realized that after like the latest escalation in violence last year, or even the year before that, by Israel on Palestine, I realized that my statistics were out of date. And it just made it even more important to read this poem. I think part of using your voice, part of speaking with people, part of like reclaiming that narrative is thinking about why you're reclaiming it and what you want that to be in service of. It's not just like speaking for speaking's sake, because any one of us could be sitting here reading our amazing poetry, our amazing thoughts, our amazing journal entries, diaries, secrets, text messages. It's about creating a chorus that says something needs to change. This is how we feel collectively. And this is how I feel about Britain's war machine. So this poem is called War Machine. In this haven of polite society, what have we exchanged for OBEs? International law that marks humanity by territory. This soil alienated from everything we need it to be. Death, fatality, and human sacrifice overshadows the reproductive struggle. Across bloodstream, river, and sea of grief, they have stolen a life's work from a nation of mothers. Shame and riot cover this government. Their hands will never be clean. Every marriage ordained should be compromised. Prime Minister, we cannot hear your calls for peace above the war machine. Use this moment to check your ambitions. Conservatism serves supremacy and hatred of everything that does not serve it. This is a time of monsters, violent forces trying to silence resistance, to turn us cold in their image and keep us complicit in obscuring of oppressed and oppressor that has never been so weak. This is a call to become unfixed. Reject the hum of the war machine. Every touch and affection has been compromised by over 30,000 loves lost 30,000 martyrs and counting. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Do you want the sound to Thank you, JJ. All your poems are really, beautiful and feel really vital. Currently, in the moment now, I think the rhymes it. Loving, loving, finally. I think, as I said, both for ourselves and also communities near and then far from us as well. Next up, we have Mymona. Mymona was coming just to host, but I didn't want to let her go without reading some of her words to you all. I'm trying to think. I've been introducing Mymona's been at all the launches with me. My emotional support friend and poet. I'm trying to think of a different way to introduce her each time to keep ourselves on our toes. Like what different, emotion can I bring to it this time? I think when you have a vision, anything that you want to create, it's a really intimate thing when you do that with other people. When you share something that you wish and you want to happen. And I think when I said to Mymona, I remember when we were sitting in a cafe and I said, I want to do this with the book, I want to do the launches, and there was no one else that I'd want to do it with. I think so much goes into it, not just in terms of, it's just all the admin support as well. Every time I had an email or a query or something that I was unsure about, Mymona was there to help and to figure it out. And then also anytime if I had any kind of wavering in kind of confidence or if I was feeling unsure about things, she was always there. And I think, we were already so close before. I don't know if this has made us closer, but I just know that there would have been no one that I would have wanted to do this with, and it wouldn't be the same without you. And I'm very lucky because she's a very talented poet and also very lucky. She's a very talented poet and an amazing friend. So I'll read her actual bio. This is just me saying that I think about her. So these are her credentials, which I'm giving you the friendship credentials, but I can do the poetry ones too. Mymona Bibi is a Bengali British writer, facilitator, and teacher based in Newcastle upon Tyne. Her writing has been featured in the Ilkley Literature Festival, Magna Poetry, Butcher's Dog, British Publishing, and London Press. She has produced and performed at events such as Newcastle Fringe Festival and Novum Festival. She created and now facilitates the World Rights Multilingual Community Writing Group.
Yeah. Ilisha does this thing where I'm like completely calm most of the time. And then she says lots of nice things about me, and now I'm like, oh my god, the pressure's on. It's been great to be at all of these launches, especially because I get to see how other poets like connect to Ilisha as a person, but also her amazing poetry. And we had a launch in Newcastle, London, and then here. And just the way different places and connections change how people read or what they read, it's just been amazing to be a part of that. I'm just going to read one poem. It's the first poem I ever read, and it was also the first time we read together. And every time I choose to read it, I always find a new reason why I want to read it, which means I really like it. And one of the reasons why I chose it for today is because I think it's about my family and how we spend time together. But it also, I think, captures a little bit about how our relationship is with all the boys and all the different things that we kind of do together. And this is called Cake Rusks. Cake Rusks. Along that narrow corridor, our shoes littered the floor, and with every step, the notes of Bangla chatter vibrated through the ground, creating an everlasting warmth. An amalgamation of houses and homes, of families, of DNA, some held close and some led astray. Our lineage and our hubby bushti, our forest filled with 1,000 trees, rooted and labelled with 1,000 names and even more identities. I hurry in, unsuccessfully dodging the medium ones, chasing the little ones, with the plastic bag sprinkling in my hand and the evaporated milk threatening to crack and spill. I dump the grocery haul on the one free, partially clean counter, and out goes a heavy sigh. An ingredients list begins spinning around my head, items jumping between the fragmented team of sisters, cousins, aunts, mothers, dalchini, LIC, tezpata. The swirls of steam, sweet spice and soft milk. That breath of dalchini is not just a fragrance, but a call to home. As the pot gets warmer, the ingredients are thrown in one by one, and so the requests flood into the kitchen one by one. When is it going to be ready? Can I have some Oreos with my tea, Mummy? I don't want any sugar in mine. I don't need a cup. A mug will be fine. But there's not a please in sight. Guys, where are the cake rusks? And with that looming realization, the scramble begins. Like the guests in the flat, the contents of the pot are almost bubbling, boiling, and brimming. A cousin is stuck in traffic whilst the children raid and evade the cupboards in search of non-existent Oreos. Nanny just laughs at the chaos around her. Her laughter and the chaos stream out the flat and drown the neighbours. The phone rings in a car a mile away, and I ask, "Can you get some cake rusks on your way over?" Silence through the speakerphone is shattered with a "please." Soon, for just half a second, that forest is revived. Filled cups touch lips of brown and pink. Figures of love scatter the floor, the sofa, the kitchen, the bedrooms, places where crumbs are just waiting to be made. As the crunches and cracks of an ancient joy create calm out of prospective catastrophe. The steam and the heat melt us into one tranquil body. That first sip of sa swims into my stomach and lays there, waiting for the next. Thank you. I don't know if I said that I wanted to read that one time. So, like Ilisha said, we are close friends, but we've also done a lot of poetry stuff together. We were talking earlier with other friends about how hard but easy we've learned to find it to switch off the friendship side and then go into work mode and then switch back when it's time. So I'll give you her poetic credentials first. Ilisha Thiru Purcell is an award-winning Sri Lankan Scottish poet from Newcastle. She was a young creative associate with New Writing Law. She was also a poet in residence at the 2025 Stanza Poetry Festival, winning the Futurist Award. She's been shortlisted for the James Berry Poetry Prize, and her work has featured in Bylines Anthology and the Third Space Anthology. What She Said is Ilisha's debut poetry pamphlet and was published by Verve Poetry Press in April 2025. Just a good poet. When I met Ilisha, I just moved to the Northeast. I'm originally from London. And through our friendship and the way that we've learned to write and work together, it's kind of built my relationship with the Northeast and its landscape as well. So whenever I'm out in the woods or at the beach, there's like a part of our friendship there as well, which I didn't fully form or realize until I'd read the poems, and then we started working on how we're going to do the launch and stuff together. And that kind of felt like a monumental realization. I can't believe this amazing landscape is linked to this amazing friendship. And then when I read the poem, when I read all the poems, read the book in PDF format, and then in the actual book, it felt like swimming in the sea, particularly because when you read it, and if you've already read it, you might understand. It feels like, you're swimming. It's nice, it's chill, it's beautiful, and then sometimes you get pulled into the water, and you're kind of lost a bit, and then you come back up. And that's just how it feels when you read this book. So without further ado, let's hear a little bit about it.
That was like your job to make me emotional this time. It's fine. So I'm going to say a little bit about the poems, and then I'm just going to read them through. You can save lots of this for the end, because they're quite short, so obviously time-wise it works well. The sequence is inspired by a form of classical Tamil love poetry, Akkam poetry, which dates back to the first 3 centuries AD, and the practice of Thinnai, which is about codifying landscapes. And in the classical form, it focuses on these 5 landscapes relating to nameless lovers, and Akkam means inner part, so it's all about the inner world of these lovers. And when I read it, when I read them in translation in the classical form, I knew there was something that I wanted to get into, and to take it kind of in my own way. And so what I did was I created my own landscapes, my own 5 landscapes, which are set in the northeast of England, which is where I live and I'm from. And I expanded the themes to also explore sexual violence and climate change as a landscape in and of itself. The poems are numbered in the order that I wrote them in, and we'll talk a little bit more about that now. So I'll just start with it. What she said. "22. What her friend said. We danced like minnows, flitting out of the water, bodies weightless, breathless. Around us, men believed they were herons, their mouths glinting bills, their unblinking eyes speaking stop. "25. What she said. The heat cracks my vision. Everywhere I see crows wielding his tongue. I seek the river I waded in as a child, hoping for blue fresh water. But my eyes have leaked the fissured face of what was once its bed." 10. What the women said. Like the freshwater salmon boiled in its own home, where do we have that is safe? Are they to grow lungs and we to live up in the clouds? There is no end to the taking of land. There is no end to the taking of bodies of water. 14. What she said to the trees. There were no passers-by. Only you saw the thief and what he took. You who have been sapped of your speech and wither as if aging backwards. I have my voice, but they look at me as if I speak the language of leaves. They turn from me and my browning tongue as they turn from the truth of your withering. 34. What she said. Check that the sun has kept its promise. Wait for the sky to flicker grey and blue. Smell the trees attending their own cremation. Hear the silence as bees pause mid-air. Check that you're ready to run. 42. What she said to the roe deer. I only saw you for a moment, that flash of white. I wonder if others saw it as flesh yet to be claimed, the centre of a target. Our eyes met, and as you ran, your white and brown fur blended like my own skin. 40. What Hadrian's Wall said to her. Become a ball of fissured edges. Slot yourself within me, you'll harden into history. Either hand dipped in the sea, head always facing the sky. You're stone now. You're stone now. The next poem is about a rock and soil sculpture of a woman reclining. It's called Northumberlandia of the Lady of the North. And the body of the woman, so many people have walked up the body that people have to take different tracks now because it's been so worn away. 41. What the Lady of the North said. There is always a witness. The trees whisper and the clouds never turn away. Even if you think you're alone, rebellion, as fragile as a dandelion seed, just wait. The wind will be at your back, the waves will caress your bones. 21. What her friend said. It is only when the world is sleeping that you will speak of it. Your words budding like henbit forced to bloom. Soon pink, purple petals will surround us. And as I reach to pick one out of your hair, you'll flinch. 50. What she said. Yesterday, out of blood and ink, I grew orchids on my ribcage. The whole landscape he was not touched. 27. What her mum said. On the shore, I unravel the secrets that live under my skin. Shame is pleated around me like a sari that belonged to my mother, her mother, and the mother of her. I place the frayed silk into the sea. Pray I do not turn back as I walk away. 16. What her father said. I've come to Shields to buy fish. But with their glassy eyes level with mine, thin slicked with iced fear, I can only whisper an apology. I will return home empty-handed. No one will notice. Their eyes busy watching what the day will reel in. 36. What she said. I stand before Marsden Rock and try to slim stones. At first they fall, coins into a fountain, a wish left ungranted. Finally, the stone skims, pirouetting once, twice, thrice on the water, and for those 3 leaps I hold my breath. I forget, and I am the stone bounding light as a hopeful thought. When the stone plummets, I remember it all again. 28. What she said. I write the truth that they will not listen to in the sand. Look how it's washed away. The truth now lives in the sea, swimming alongside dolphins, resting against a flash of coral. It is happy here. It seems it has no place on dry land. Poem 26 is the turning point in the pamphlet. It's got a little notice there for that. It's probably my favourite poem. 26, what she said. This strip of blue amid green, the Dean parting its legs in bloom. I grip this moment, but the image of the forest raised water siphon, the legs of the earth held open flits before my eyes. I listen to the song of the water falling, birds writing poems in the air. It all sounds like a page is trying to turn. And now we're moving into the final landscape, which is the landscape of love and sexuality. 1. What she said. I will tell no one else how I knew the way one drop of dew slides down the folds of the leaf. Poem 8 is about a shoe tree in Newcastle, which is what it says on the tin. It's a shoe where people just tree where people just throwing up loads of shoes. The number of shoes up there is actually very impressive. And I really wanted to write a very urban love poem about it. 8. What she said to him. Meet me under the shoe tree, the scent of wild garlic sewing us together. What is underneath the stars, under shoes who have found their match, who spend each day aware of time's thin branch, and still swing to the beat of Christ. Let's name a pair after us, walk off into the night as they dance in the sky. 13. What she said to him. We fell to the floor, and the carpet became brass, shimmering with dew. It was too early for stars, but your touch became a constellation point that only we knew the name of. My body, celestial. 6. What she said to him. Touch me the way the sunset kisses the moor daily, differently each time. Yesterday it was a caress, an exhale of pink. Today, no inch of sky untouched, as red gathers into orange like crumpled sheets. And our final poem that I'll be reading in the final round of pamphlet. 30. What she said to him. The curves of my body wax and wane, a blossom moon after we. But what word is there for what we have shared? There is just the flash of the full moon behind caresses of clouds, the reflection cradled in the puddle on our doorstep, a drop of the celestial. Thank you. Is that okay? Yeah. Yeah.
Hello again. That was amazing. It always is amazing.
Spinning behind you.
I've got to not fidget. Okay. Before I ask you the first question, while I was sitting there listening to the poems again, I realised that one of my favourite things, and I got really excited to have come and talk to you, is talking to you. I think when we reading is such a personal and individual thing. If you read something you really like, no matter if it's a poem or a novel or a book, whatever it is, there's a part of you that wants to talk about it always, in whatever way you feel comfortable. But because I have such an amazing poet friend, there's always someone I can talk to about it. I'm actually talking about this book today with you. Okay, first question. Can you tell us a bit about how the book came about and what were your inspirations?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a story, because I feel like a lot of writing is. I feel like I don't believe that everything happens for a reason, maybe for obvious reasons, but I'm quite selective with the things that I do, and I feel like finding parts of this book felt like that for me. So it was when I was in London. I just finished university, and I've been. It sounds like maybe a thing that doesn't sound hard. It's something that you haven't had to think about, but a lot of the time. Conceptualizing or understanding how you can live in a body which has gone through different experiences is really challenging. To understand how it's the same landscape and vessel, but it's been through so many different things, and how you almost embody that and go through life. And I hadn't found a way to understand that. And I was in the National Poetry Library in London. It was a beautiful sunny day, probably around 3 years ago in August. And I had read Shash Trevett's incredible pamphlet, and she'd mentioned about Afghan poetry there. I thought, oh, that sounds amazing. And I looked it up in I think online. This is the power of libraries. And it came to a book, and it was a reference only. I have to say, and it's called The Interior Landscape by A.P. Ramanujan, where he had translated into English the classical Tamil poems. And I was reading them about the different landscapes, about the love, and it had something in them in one of the landscapes about a thief. And I just thought, oh, I know what I'm taking from this, and it isn't about love. And I thought the form allowed for space where experiences of violence, gender-based violence, could fit within it, because it made sense to me that the body does go through things in the way that nature that are natural. You know, some aspects of loss are natural and things like that, and the way that we change in terms of our health and aspects like that. But violence, regardless of what scale it is on, is not something we should go through or is natural. And that's where that comes in through the climate change aspect. It's not something that bodies of land or humans should be experiencing in that way. So I thought, okay, I think this could work. It was almost like something falling into place moment in terms of my writing, but also how I felt as a person. And I got some funding from New Writing North to start working on poems, and I got to have Shash as an editor for the work, which was just incredible. Yeah, so all of the mentoring sessions, completely trying to hold in my family illness of her as a writer and person. And it was through that I made the landscapes and thought, okay, this works this way. And it was actually Shash who said, I think they need to be set in the northeast, because originally I set them with the traditional landscapes. And right at the back of the book, I've got my table, which has the different landscapes of the northeast and the different kind of seasons and animals and plants that link to it. Yeah, and so once it fell into place, I think sometimes a lot of work, it's like a clicking thing. It all kind of fits. You know, I like my maths. So it's like some sort of equation, and it all just I've been finding. So you know, when you would, this is me going on a tangent, but you know, when you have an exam and you get marks for working out, so you just write down everything you can think of. I think that's what I've been doing for a long time, writing it down, but not getting to the answer, or what I felt was the right answer for me. And eventually, after a while, I found what X was, and it was all my classical poems in the northeast, and then mathematical.
Yeah, it is quite phenomenal how you just got this amazing poetic mind, but then this like very strict math. Yeah, and one of us needs to. Yeah, I think one of the things I really like is the connection between like the human body and the natural bodies and landscapes. Can you tell us a little bit about the landscape of the northeast and how that's come into play in this book?
Yeah, so I think I grew up in the northeast. That's where I live now and where we met. And I think I never read much poetry about the northeast, and definitely not poetry that was written by someone who was like me. And so I think I really miss that. I think there's something really wonderful about being able to read something and you can almost imagine it or see yourself there. You can't ever really replace how that feels. I'd have loved to read a love poem about someone sitting by the side of the Great North Road and so much pollution, but there's like one daffodil. Yeah, so I think I knew, but I think it was almost like I was in London and then I'd returned back to Newcastle. It was almost how do you write about a landscape in a place that you have a challenging relationship with, and almost how you write yourself back into the place itself. And I think for me it's interesting because yeah, if you know me, I'm like a strong supporter of the Northeast, and there's so much that I love about it, from the people to the landscapes and living there. And it's interesting because I was thinking about, I think, oh, you've written a book and the majority of the landscapes are all about violence that occurs in these landscapes. Is that a positive thing? But actually the thing that I almost found out through us speaking was that the thing that is true is that the constant, what is the witness, is nature in this. A lot of the time in relation to violence, it would be what a person said, and often people use that adage of he said, she said. And so you're left with just words. But the difference is there is always more than just that. There is always, as it was in my experience, there's always another witness there, more than just yourself. And usually nature is there in some sense, and in the way that nature doesn't lie, and it is a truth and it is a constant. So for me, actually, it became supportive, like this sort of support, a witness that was always there in the landscape. And then almost when I realised that, I guess that shifted my relationship to it. And I should have also said in the Tamil, one of the translations of the original kind of classical titles literally translates as what she said. So that's where it's from. And as I said, the way that we relate that to sexual violence works in that sort of sense. But yeah, I think, yeah, it's about a landscape that I love and actually loves me back, which I felt through writing this in a way that I probably didn't feel a sense of belonging before I wrote it.
Yeah, I think, I mean, Ilisha's an amazing articulate person, but one of the lines that I've kind of been carrying with me that she's said various times between us and also at these discussions is that landscape is a witness. And I think it's something you kind of give that landscape a voice, because you're saying, you talk about the violence that's committed on or to these landscapes. But then when we give it that voice and that power, it can kind of shift how you look at and see the spaces around you. So I really appreciate how you sort of frame that in the book and in our conversations. Another thing I wanted to ask is the ordering and numbering of the book, of the poems and the sequence is quite unconventional. Can you tell us a bit about that?
It's a cool topic I like to talk about. So when I wrote them, it's really, when you get funding and you say you're gonna do something and then you have to do it, it's quite challenging. Because then you have the blocks and then, oh my gosh, I said I was gonna do this, and also because it was in conversation with classical Tamil poetry, I kind of had that real sense of, I really want to do this justice, I really want to do it well. I'm thinking about your ancestry and how important it is to you. So yeah, that was a steep sort of, oh my gosh, how do I do this? The blank page was strong. So I set myself a thing of, I have to write one poem a day. I just have to write it, and it has to be in this form, and I just have to do that. So I started numbering them from the way that they were written. And I started with the love poems. That's why the love poems are right at the start, the first one, the 1 and 2. And I think for me that love poems have always been the easiest poems to write for me, staring directly at my phone. I'm saying this. And it always been the easiest ones to write to me. And I think if the world was different, I would just purely write. I could easily write books and books of love poems. And so I think that's where it started from. And then the more that I wrote, obviously it moved off into its different spaces. And by the end, there's around 50 poems. But when I was selecting which ones, I kind of narrowed it down to 31. And I knew I wanted it to work in the landscape order that it's in, so through 1 to 5. But what it allowed for was this sort of lack of linearity, which feels very true to the concept of trauma and the experience there. I think the sort of the pigeonholing that can happen if you write, or your experience is one that begins traumatically and ends with love, and in a consensual happy relationship, that sort of the move from trauma to triumph. And I did not want the book to be that. Something can be my experience, but it's not a lot of people's. And because sexual violence is systemic, there's also never a point where people, especially women, femme people, and particularly people of colour, are safe from that. So there isn't a static endpoint. So I wanted the numbering and the way it like shifts allows for that, because you flip between the numbers. So you can read it in the way it's written, kind of start to end of the book, or you can read it with the numbers, if that makes sense. Then you'd start from love and turn into something completely different. And there's also gaps, because trauma and post-traumatic stress causes the memory and the way that we experience and see things to shift. And so I wanted to have those gaps in there where you don't know what's happened. So I think that allowed for multiple ways that you can read it, but also a way of introducing more than one experience within it. And also it could each be a different voice. There's lots of different voices within it. People presume it's that one person or one experience, but actually it doesn't have to be that at all.
I think it's one of the bits of magic in this book is that you can read it in multiple different ways. And I would encourage you to, it does give a different sort of flavour to what it feels like and what it means as well. And you're talking about like the little gaps. So one of the things that I really like about this book is that each poem is like a little snapshot of something that has or may have happened. And that's also what I like about the title. What she said is like, she said it, did it happen? So there's like a element of what might have happened or what this image means, but you never get a full story or a full picture. Can you tell us what you would like or think about audiences or readers taking from each or the whole book?
That's interesting, though, what she said, but did it happen? My mind always comes up with new thoughts and that.
That's the joy of having these discussions. Like when we first said we were going to have like a discussion like this, I was nervous about people watching us talk. We talk forever. Most of the time, nobody else is there. And I think one of the things I've realised is, I can ask the same questions, but they get reframed every time I reread the books, every time I listen to you read it again, every time you give me an answer, I'm like, I've got another question. So yeah, so do you want me to read the question again?
I think I got it. Not that they were prepared. I've got it. So yeah, I think the brevity of the poems, I like the tension that it holds, that you don't know therefore what happened before or after. That you're and that's the way that intimacy works, is that you don't know how things can shift. You want to know, you hope you know, but you don't know how things shift. And that's, I guess, what is the before, what's the after. You don't know, you only get that moment. And it's like what you want to take from it, and the story that you want to make out of them is interesting in terms of how we do that ourselves. And I think it is about, it's capturing those small moments in the same way that in nature, you can watch something, you can watch your hedge grow, and then suddenly something will shift, a bird will come along, or a twig will move slightly, and suddenly everything's kind of shifted in that way, which I think is the same in intimacy, in relationships, in that sort of way, and sometimes for very good reasons, and sometimes for not at all. And I think it was, it's those, the moments and the multiplicity really mattered, and meant something to me. And I think I was also thinking there's a lot of storylines, I guess, going on, and I guess in the wider context I was writing this about. So the Tamil poems, I'm writing this in the context of the genocide of the Tamil people. And within that genocide, as often happens, sexual violence was used as a weapon against many of the Tamil people. And the kind of quote at the beginning of the work, which is by a Tamil poet, Subaramani, which is, "In my endeavour to be human, I wish to leave the flowers in the trees." And again, it's that way, I guess, like what we leave, and also as writers, like what we give, and the power that there is within giving and then withholding, in that sort of sense, about our own stories and the stories that we write about. But I just wanted to, I think there's always the personal, but also the wider context of why we write is really important. And as I said, Subaramani was a Sri Lankan Tamil poet, and after some of extreme brutality in the 20th century, where sexual violence was used against many Tamil people, she killed herself and set fire to a lot of her poems. So I really wanted the sense of the Tamil, not just in the way of the form, but also about the history, and what people have gone through to be there, and how also quick things shift in relation to like the news and moments. Someone can tell you about an experience they had, or you see something on the news, and the next moment we move on or something shifts. But it isn't the same for the person or the community around them who've experienced that. And I think as with everything, it's kind of in the moment, but it's what happens before or after that also speaks just as loudly.
Thank you. That's all the questions that I have. Thank you for talking to me about this again, that we will be talking about forever. This is an amazing book, and I love the last thing that you just said about it, sort of about thinking about what you leave behind. And this is an amazing offering. I'll hand it back to Ilisha to finish up.
Yeah, thank you. Sometimes I prepare them, sometimes I don't. So I can do them off the top of my head. I think I just want to say a lot about trauma is not just about the thing that happens, it's also often about, if not more sometimes, what happens after, and the way that people are supported or not supported after, that can make a massive difference to how that experience is kind of metabolized, for want of a better word. And that's particularly true for sexual violence, where due to shame and kind of the way other people view things, regardless of whether the perpetrator or not, impacts the individual. And I think so I think what I found is, the support that I felt from people close to me, whether that's my partner or my close friends, and obviously yourself, just means a lot in relation to the book, but I think also wider than that. I think they're just, people showing up for you is never something that people take for granted. So I think my thank yous are to all of my wonderful poets who performed with me today, JJ, Zainab, and Mymona. I'm so lucky to have just such amazingly talented friends. It's just an absolutely wonderful thing to have that in my life. Obviously to Lighthouse for having us and making it so wonderful. It's just such a lovely space. It feels very easy to feel kind of at home and just chat as if we were in my living room. To be fair, and the green it's quite similar. This is pretty
Yeah.
You can see us coming more and more to our usual selves.
She's always on the right as well.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, and so yeah, and to the friends who have travelled here today, got London, we've got Newcastle, so people making the effort there, and then also just to my wonderful partner, who, as I said, the last poem's all about, and it's such a wonderful thing to have experiences and someone that you can write poems like that about. So I'm incredibly lucky. So thank you all for coming.